At the September meeting, the board also welcomed the county manager's first steps towards a community process for potentially renaming streets, bridges, and county-owned properties in Arlington that would also consider changing Arlington's seal, logo, and flag. And what was the impetus for the manager's proposal on this?
Absolutely. So, since June, when we saw George Floyd murdered in Minneapolis, there has been an outpouring in our community. Marches, engagement, but also specific calls for reforms, not only about the sort of substantive ways in which Arlington's racist or Confederate past still has impact on policy and practice today, but also on symbols of that Confederate or past or racism or the past of enslavement that we know also happened here in Arlington County. We've certainly seen a lot of engagement around the issue of the county logo, and that is in fact derived from the county seal, which is an image, so to speak, of Arlington House, which the federal government has designated as a memorial to Robert E. Lee. And so by extension, I know for a lot of Arlingtonians who wrote us or spoke to us, there was a sense that that logo or that seal was standing for a set of values surrounding the Confederacy, enslavement, dehumanization that certainly didn't represent Arlington's values to date. So you've seen some of the efforts underway already to talk about these sort of substantive vestiges of racism, like our police practices group. And now we're also trying to open the doors to have that conversation about the future of symbols and names in Arlington. So I think the board agrees that the time has come to make that change. And now we're looking forward to taking the next few months to talking with others about what should replace it, about what other honorifics to the Confederacy remain in our community and which we should discuss for the future. And Libby, I know you've been working incredibly hard with the manager and our new chief equity officer on trying to shape what that conversation will look like.
Yeah, and we're hiring a local group, a consultant that I've worked with for many years called Challenging Racism to help guide the community with kind of guided conversations. And I'm pretty excited about this process that's moving forward. That was kind of already underway before we kind of we got the idea that we needed to change the logo and the seal and the flag. But we've been of course getting calls to changing the names, and I think what we've realized, in fact, it's hard to remember, but at one point we were really working on celebrating our 100th anniversary this year, and it was supposed to be 100 years, looking back and looking forward, looking both ways. And part of what I had wanted to do then was to have a real good understanding of our history, because I think you can do a much better job of understanding where you are and where you want to go if you really understand who you are and how we got here. And in fact, we had held one panel, and that had been with Black Americans here in our community, Black residents that have been here for years and years and years, talking about their experiences here. I learned a lot. It was a wonderful panel. That's the one panel we managed to carry off. And that process made me even more encouraged about how we're approaching here. I think the need to educate is what the manager was talking about, the different steps. And the first one is education. It's just really to develop an understanding, again, of who we are and how we got here. And I've been learning a lot about history, and I always figure I'm pretty well informed. Well, there's a lot to learn. And I think as we start to do it and think about these things in an intentional way. So the real dispute here, I think you probably agree, Katie, was how fast we're going to do it. It's not it's like how fast and how. And, I think we were chatting ahead of time, and Katie was pointing out it's really only a difference of about 3 months, which in Arlington wait time is like a nanosecond, right? But I know, but to some people it feels, there's a whole lot of emotion and feeling. But my real effort here is I understand, I do understand, I can't totally understand, but, the feelings and the emotions that this brings up. But I really think we need, more light and less heat on this issue of as all of the issues we're dealing with. I think our job as board members and leaders is to help kind of bring down the temperature. We've got so much chaos and swirl going on with the election, with, a real awakening in this country that, systemic racism really is a thing. I think a lot of people just kind of thought, they're just talking about it. It's not really real. That videotape murder of George Floyd just made it so clear. So I think we're in a good place. The board, it was a 5-0 vote on how we're going to move forward. We're absolutely committed to doing this. But I think what we all want is to have a really good, thoughtful conversation, and that we move forward in an intentional way and put in place a process for not only the logo, the seal, it's about more than that. We've been asked to change the names of bridges, roads, buildings, and that includes Wilson Boulevard, and there've been a little rumblings about changing the name of Arlington County itself. So before we just kind of launch off in 1,000 different directions, I think we need to get a process and an understanding and approach it in, a very deliberate, thoughtful kind of way. And I think it'll make us much stronger as a community, actually. I'm looking forward to it.
I think too, we're trying to approach this, or at least speaking for myself, with a little humility that the 5 members of the board don't have all the answers on what should change and how. Certainly with the local, we've heard from a number of the community, number of members of the community. But on some of these other issues, right, this opportunity for the community to weigh in and to learn from the history, because I think that's where we are remiss. I think the logo should change. I know all 5 of us think the logo should change. To do it without the conversations and the history means we've really missed an opportunity to talk about Arlington's history. For example, the Confederate names that we saw crop up in the 20s and 30s. I was just on a call last night kicking off the Lee Highway Alliance's engagement process about renaming Lee Highway. And Wilma Jones, who's a historian and author, as well as 4th generation, I think, Halls Hill resident, was pointing out Lee Highway wasn't Lee Highway after the end of the Civil War. Lee Highway was named Lee Highway during a wave of resistance to new freedoms being expressed by Black residents in the 20s and 30s. And so I think there's a really important opportunity for us to discuss these symbols and understand how these symbols reflect decisions that have been baked into our zoning ordinance, for example, or other key processes in Arlington. And so I don't want to miss the chance for us to have real conversations about that history, to understand how we've been shaped by the Confederate legacy, by the racist legacy in our community. Because I think if we really are going to embark on a set of anti-racist actions to make this community the inclusive community that we so wish to be, we have to know where we're coming from and how we're going to change it.
Yeah, and I'll just build on one point, because I've been saying this a lot, and I appreciate you bringing it up. It really doesn't matter what the board thinks, what the 5 of us think. It matters what the community as a whole thinks, and we need to really work that through. So we're facilitators here. That's what we are, I think. And
this will not be something done overnight. This is something we're really going to kind of take the time and research, learn, and make an informed decision altogether.
Some people said it took us 400 years to get here. It's going to take us a little while to get out of here. But I think the understanding, Katie, it was really revelatory to me. I'd never really focused on the fact that it was during the 20s and 30s when all of those names changed. It was just part of the South trying to refight and relitigate the Civil War. And they've been doing, that's been far too successful. We need to finish that war and finish it up and move forward as a united, healthy, just country.
There we go. On that note, we will take one more short break. And when we come back, we're going to close out our discussion with a look at how the coronavirus has affected county revenues. We'll be right back.